132. Credit and property. If it were possible to speak of words falling from grace, we would have to say that this is the case with the word credit. It comes from the Latin credo, I believe, and its essential meaning once was to believe, to accept as true. To credit something or someone was to regard them as believable or true. A man of credit was once a man of character, marked by trustworthiness and reliability. In the financial world, credit meant in bookkeeping an amount in one's favour. These meanings are now in the background. Credit now means essentially debt. When, in 1971, I sought to buy a house, I had serious problems. I was told that I had no credit, meaning no debt. Several other persons have reported similar experiences to me. Let us now examine the significance of the newer meaning of credit. We have noted the implications of John Law's view of money and the, quote, improvements, end quote, made on law. Grosclose has stated the matter tellingly. Law attempted to build a money system based upon evidences of commercial wealth. Modern banking attempts to build a money system upon evidences of debt. Law sought, by the Midas touch of banking, to convert tangible wealth, produced and above ground, into money. Modern banking seeks to convert our debts, our lack of wealth, our promises to pay from proceeds of wealth which is still unproduced and still in the future, into money. Consider the moral revolution modern money involves. Debt is now the basis of, and behind, all money, so that debt is now an asset, and credit means the ability to contract debt because of a record of debt. But this is a more basic revolution than the sexual revolution, and we can with justice say, behind the religious and moral revolutions of this humanistic era, stands the basic error which is epitomized in the modern idea of money as debt. It follows logically that if debt is an asset, as the modern view of money sees it, then sin too is a social asset to modern man. St. Paul had to deal with a like attitude, although milder in form, in his letter to the Romans. For if the truth of God's hath more abounded through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? And not rather, as we be slanderously reported, and as some affirm that we say, let us do evil that good may come, whose damnation is just. Romans chapter 3, verses 7 and 8. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Romans chapter 6, verse 1. Because St. Paul denied the validity of self-righteousness in man's salvation and affirmed sovereign grace, there were those who held that sin was an asset, and the more man sinned, the greater the good which would follow. They were twisting St. Paul's words to make him espouse evil as the means to grace. What St. Paul means when he says, where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. Romans chapter 5, verse 20, is not that sin causes grace to flow, but that sovereign grace is more powerful than sin. Where sin flourishes, grace is more powerful still and overcomes the powers of darkness to make all things new. Paul does not affirm antinomianism. He specifically denies this. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. Romans chapter 3, verse 31. But apostate man believes that unless the law represents his works, his own righteousness, and his own decree of law, there is no law. Antinomianism says the only tenable law is man's own work. Paul's critics were charging him with making an asset out of sin. Paul turns this charge back on them. They are the ones whose damnation is just because they refuse to recognize their own total depravity. Romans chapter 3, verses 7 to 18. Or that God's indictment makes all the world guilty before God. Romans chapter 3, verse 18. It is only God's grace through Christ which redeems man. Romans chapter 3, verses 23 to 25. Paul's critics were thus trying to establish their own fiat righteousness as law, and they tried to vilify Paul by calling him what they themselves were with respect to God's law, an antinomian. Isaiah says of self-righteous man, of man in apostasy, "But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousnesses are as filthy rags, and we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away." Isaiah chapter 64, verse 6. Of those who are his redeemed ones, who move in his grace, power, protection, and blessing, the Lord declares, "No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is a heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord." Isaiah chapter 54, verse 17. "Their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord." The modern world does not state the matter in the same language, but it does say, in effect, "Let us sin that grace may abound." Grace, for modern men, is freedom from God and His law. All too frequently I hear of young women who leave their husbands and good homes to become sexual tramps. What's their reason? The phrases commonly heard are, "I want to be free," and "I want to be me." "I want to be free. I want to be me." This, for them, is the blessed life, because they see sin as an asset. The earlier manifestations of this appeared in the 1920s, when a study by G.V. Hamilton made clear that most cases of adultery by women were motivated by the desire to exercise quote-unquote freedom. It was not problems in the marriage, but a belief that they would be missing out on life if they did not engage in adultery. Since then, male and female adults, young and even children, have been pursuing this same illusion. Sin is seen as a social asset. This view is an aspect of a faith in credit as the ability to contract debt, and debt as a foundation of money. The same moral revolution expresses itself in law. The psalmist sings of those evil forces, described as the throne of iniquity, which frameth mischief or perverseness by a law. Psalm 94, verse 20. Framing here means contriving, plotting. The throne of iniquity means the throne or civil power which is based on wickedness. This civil power acts as though it were God or allied with God, as though God himself gave consent to perversity and evil. Much modern civil government operates on this premise, and sin is made into law. This was the basis of the Gay Rights Ordinance in Dade County, Florida in 1977, repealed by community efforts headed by Anita Bryant. The ordinance mandated that all employers, including private religious schools, could not refuse to hire someone because he was a homosexual. Nor could employers fire anyone because of his sexual preference. Those who did, quote-unquote, discriminate were subject to a $500 fine and/or 60 days in jail. The ordinance, in fact, would seem to have applied to flaunting homosexual as well as closet gays. Under this ordinance, private schools, both religious and secular, would have been forced to hire or keep on homosexual activists, even though the schools and the parents who sent their children to these schools held the deepest conviction that homosexuality was not just an alternate lifestyle, but a perversion that should neither be sanctioned nor propagated. On the federal level, similar measures were introduced by several congressmen. Such efforts and many existing laws seek to make sin a social asset and bulwark. The defense of sin becomes important, and this means an assault on righteousness. When money becomes debt, then real wealth is rapidly eroded because the economy becomes inflationary and unstable. Wealth is transferred by inflation to debtors, and the biggest debtor is civil government. The result is the erosion of wealth and property in any biblical sense. Similarly, when sin becomes a social asset, protected by law, and one modern European state now protects incest, then all righteousness is under attack and at odds with the law. The word property, like the word proper, comes from the Latin proprius, meaning one's own, belonging to the natural or essential constitution. Something of this meaning is conveyed in the term as used in Shakespeare, my proper son, that is, my true son, who is mine by blood and nature. The word property also refers to the nature and characteristics of a thing or person, as in the expression, the properties of gold. The properties of gold are inseparable from the nature of gold, and gold cannot be described apart from its property. Because man is a fallen creature, the properties of his fallen estate are essentially sin and death. As a result, fallen man will frame perversity by a law, and he will seek to make an asset out of debt as well as sin. He is manifesting his properties. The properties of the redeemed man, having been regenerated in the image of God, are righteousness, holiness, knowledge, and dominion. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 28, Colossians chapter 3, verse 10, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14, Psalm 8, verses 2 to 8. As man grows in his sanctification, he will increase his properties in these areas, and their implications will be material as well as spiritual. His dominion will manifest itself materially and intellectually. He will be a man of property in the broadest sense of the word, so that religiously he will abound. This will manifest itself culturally, in his arts and sciences, as well as in his physical possessions. Those who feel that grace and prosperity will abound when sin abounds are destroying themselves and decapitalizing their culture. Only where men see not debt, but faith and obedience as a basic expression of credit, only where credit rests on credo, I believe, and in the fruits or works of that faith, will there also be property, prosperity, and growth in the biblical sense of the meaning of life and culture. Apart from that credo, credit, as in the modern sense, is the love of death. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 36.